All right. Hey guys. Thank you all for joining me today with my first soul session. I wanted to do these to kind of create space for people to see how mental health is literally tied into every single thing in this world. So mental health is obviously related to like our physical health, our spiritual well-being. Mental health can be connected to our money management, our relationships, profession, school, all of it. And also, mental health can be impact government leadership, how we serve. And so, I want to create these spaces so that people can begin to see how pivotal, excuse me, mental health is just to our lives. So you all are a part of the first soul session, which is super exciting and nerve-wracking for me. Mental health and creatives. Creatives are very special to me. I've been able to journey with quite a few creatives who do different things, but they're special because in my ability to kind of like journey with them through life, I see how uh, vital their humanity is. So like a lot of times people as creatives are looked at based on what you have to offer and the things that you do, but sometimes your humanity and just like your everyday well-being can be overlooked. And so consequently, creatives have just become very special people to me. So for you all to be creatives in different lanes, I think that you all have something great to offer to this space. So the only rule is just to be authentic and have a good time. So, first thing, I want you all to share who you are and what you do. And Ahji, you can go first.
Oh, I'm Ahji. I am a very emotional woman. I'm a mother of two, a puppy mom. I am an empath. I am uh, just a goofy person. What I do, I am a
You are a
singer
great
songwriter.
person.
Um, I am a writer, period. I am a background vocalist and recording artist.
Yes, all of it, all of it. Okay. Kaz, you go next.
Sweet. So I'm Kaz. I live here in Atlanta, but I'm actually from Newark, New Jersey. I'm a writer, a business consultant, ghostwriter. Just that I always struggle with trying to like name and condense like what I do because I do so much. But those are probably like the top three things, or everything kind of like funnels under those three things. I'm excited to be here. Thank you
Yeah,
for the invitation.
of course. And who are you? So you tell me what you do, but who are you?
I am a I'm a regular guy. I love food. I like naps. I like to clown. I love television. I have an affinity for ratchet television. Some days, depending on the day. I love music, all types of music. So country, rap music, hip hop, R&B. I love it all
Nice.
in a nutshell.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Joseph or Jojo?
So I'm Joe. I am a graphic designer. Um, yeah, I'm just all around just a goofball, like a little ball of energy. Been designing for like 7, 8 years now. And I love every bit of it. Been creating between websites, logos, graphic, like t-shirt design, anything you think of, I've probably designed it. I just love doing it. So
I love it. Do y'all find it hard to like, if somebody's like, who are you? Or tell me about yourself, do you find it hard to not first go to what you do?
It's almost like second nature, and I don't know where it started,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that for me, it just comes out clearly. And it's not like I guess like it's not intentional, even though it's kind of like an instinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I think for me, that's happened because and I'm jumping the gun, but I've tied a lot of what I've done to like who I am. I'm a nerd. So like academics, I've always done well in academics. And so somebody's like, hey, tell me about yourself. Oh, I'm a first generation college student or college graduate, and I've done this, and this. Like I've done that because my worth and a lot of like people celebrate me or commend me for the things that I've accomplished. And so I've been personally working on separating the two to say, okay, this is what I've done, but this is who I am. And so that's why I challenge you guys to tell me who are you and what you do. Because I think, you know, a lot of people, whether you're creative or not, I think a lot of people do that. So yeah.
Thank you for the challenge.
Yeah, I'm here to challenge, but I'm also here so that we can just have good, you know, conversation. So a little bit about breaking down Stigma. That was initially created as a virtual community or virtual safe space for people to get info about mental health. So some people are, you know, willing to acknowledge that mental health is a part of like who we are. And some people are not yet there. And so I wanted to create Breaking Down Stigma as a space for people to kind of jumpstart their journey of like acknowledging and exploring their mental health, or if they've already started, you know, as a like a aid or a support along the way. And so one thing about mental health is that there is a lot of stigma that's still attached to it, which is why, you know, it says breaking down stigma. My goal is to help people break that stigma down. And so for you all, I want to know, in your various journeys, wherever you are, what was some of the stigma that kind of stops you all from exploring or acknowledging like, hey, mental health is something I need to look into or acknowledge? Yeah, anybody can go. Joe, go first.
So for me, it was mostly I was so used to the hustle and bustle mentality of just work, figure everything else out, to where I would literally burn myself out. I wouldn't want to create anything. Just, you know, just be kind of over it to where I'm like, I don't even want to do this anymore. And until I figured out, hey, you know, how you work with your emotion as well and your mental health. So if you don't take that time to go through those emotions or kind of take a rest day or take that time to be still, you know, your art, your talent, your skills, they kind of go downhill. You're not creating at your full capacity. You're just mostly creating out of a need. And it's not even like, oh, because I love it. It's just like, oh, I have to pay this bill. So it's already like stressing you out. But once I realized that, I think I kind of picked up better habits of, you know, hey, take a break, come back from this computer, you know, take the time to actually figure out your thoughts, process your thoughts, and not sit there and just like wallow. If I'm sad, you know, not wallow strictly just in me being sad all day, but just kind of taking a step back and be like, okay, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And then processing that, and then, you know, getting back to work from there.
Mm-hmm. So you would say that grind mentality of like, you can sleep. Well, yeah, I was gonna say you can sleep when you're dead, but that like just hustle was kind of one thing that you thought was like healthy and normal, but then you seeing how it impacted what you were doing, you was like, all right, let me stop and let me acknowledge that mental health is important.
Yes. Rest days are important. I know a lot of people like, oh, you can rest me. No, rest days are important. When I started to see my body would be affected by it, like I would be tired, my body would ache. I was like, yeah, I need to slow it down here because I'm still young. I don't need to, you know, put myself to an early grave.
For sure. No, for sure. What about you, Ahji? What is some stigma that you've been trained to believe is normal and so you didn't acknowledge your mental and emotional well-being?
I think, like he said, we're so programmed to think overdrive is normal, to think that sometimes emotional dysfunction, mental dysfunction is normal. You know, when we feel a certain way, it's like, oh no, I'm all right. You know, oh no, I'm okay. I'm just tired, getting up tired, going to sleep tired. Like these things we acknowledge as normalcy, and it's really not. Until you come to terms with that, you don't realize you're living in that stigma of not taking care of yourself, in denial actually, and saying I'm fine but I'm really not fine, you know what I mean? And I think that's where I was for a long time. It's like, just do this. Even when you want to say no, you don't say no, because it's like, I can just get it over with. I'm good. Like, I'm feeling a little down today, that's okay. I'm good. And we're programmed to just say I'm fine and I'm good, and not take a second to reflect on what's really going on inside of us. That to us is normalcy. But I had to come to a point where it's like, oh, that's not normal. Me feeling like this when I'm just waking up is not normal. me feeling like this doing a certain project is not normal. And I need to learn when to say no. I think a lot of the times no is a bad word, but I had to come to terms with the fact that no is actually a good word. A good word for me anyway. So,
And no is a complete sentence.
Is no, period. That's it. That's it.
Nah, that's real. And I think I also, that I'm just tired. Do you know how many times I've said that? Like,
Yes.
no, I'm not just tired. I'm actually hurt. I'm actually mad. Like, there's so many other things, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
Yes.
but just saying I'm just tired. People are like,
That
oh, okay.
that thing where you have to cover up what you're really feeling to make somebody else's job or somebody else's dream or somebody else's vision come to life, but you're ignoring your inner feelings. Like, those things are things that I did and now I don't do.
Yes, I love it. What about you, Khas?
I think when it comes to like the stigma of mental health, for me, one of the things that I kind of like, I think from a cultural perspective that becomes easy to subscribe to, is the notion that if you like, let's say if you need therapy or if you need counseling or you have to like talk through issues that somehow that makes you crazy. And I think it's placed such like a negative connotation over the concept of not just seeking therapy, but also seeking self-care, to the point where people aren't as vocal. And I think over the recent years, mental health and self-care, things like that, have become buzzwords. But even with them trending and being buzzwords, there's still like a lot of stigma. And so for me personally, it's become this thing where, you know, the reality is that we're real people going through real things and having very real experiences, and that requires us to be intentional about taking care of ourselves, whether that looks like therapy, whether that looks like, you know, having a mental health day. I recently just got to the point, probably over like the last, I want to say 3 months, where Mondays are like my do nothing days. And rest used to be this thing that I would partake in but feel guilty about. And I've been training myself to rest without apologizing, or rest without feeling like I'm doing something wrong. And I think all of it traces back to like this stigma where we've just kind of like bought into the idea that mental health should not be a part of our narrative. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I know, like, personally, I've seen in the context of like, you know, being raised and things like that, where you didn't really partake in mental health. It was just what it was. Even if there was something noticeably wrong, we were just kind of like taught to roll with the punches. So I think it's a journey of just realizing that it's actually normal to take care of your mental wellness.
No, for sure. And the reality is, mental health is not like, we don't make physical health something separate. You know what I'm saying? But for some reason, we like separate mental health as like, I guess, a thing, for lack of a better term. But mental health is just like your physical health, right? Yeah. It's just like your spiritual well-being. Like, it's all a makeup of who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that, like, I am also passionate to help people understand, like, even because I am a licensed therapist. So like, even when I'm talking to people, you know, I make that comparison that mental health is just like physical health. Like, it's the same, and they overlap and connect, right? Sometimes when we are having physical symptoms or pains, like, that's not always related to something physical. You know, that can sometimes be related to something mental, or mental and emotional, or vice versa, right? So things that are mental and emotional can have physical manifestations. I feel like I just said the same thing, but you get what I'm saying? Like they overlap, you know, like they are connected to each other. And so that's one thing I'm also passionate about, is like helping people see that like this is not a separate thing outside of us, but this is a part of our makeup, you know, just like we are physical people, and we have physical illnesses, we have sometimes mental and emotional illnesses or stressors, and that's normal.
Yeah.
As you all are African American, and so do you feel like there are any other cultural narratives that impacted your ability to acknowledge mental health coming up in a Black community or Black family?
I think we're taught to be resilient. And because of that, sometimes it's just in our makeup to bounce back from things, certain traumas that happen or certain experiences that we have that set us back emotionally or mentally. We're just taught to bounce back, you know. And sometimes growing up, I didn't process certain things. I didn't know to process, you know. So it's just like, I'm resilient, I can do it, just push through it. You know what I mean? That's what we're taught. Like, just push through it, just go through it, and not actually take a second to say, wow, that really hurt, or wow, what's going on inside of me, like, you know what I mean? So I think growing up Black is like growing up with an embedded sense of resilience, where you just roll with the punches, you just go with the flow, you just, you know, keep going on top of certain experiences, when we should like sit back and think about certain things that happen to us, process certain things that happen to us, so that we move forward in a more healthy way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, too, I feel like this whole notion of us being a resilient people kind of came at the expense of us really losing a sense of our humanity, particularly in Black culture. And I think this dates all the way back to the traumatic experiences of, you know, slavery and things like that. And it's a large reason as to why we were in homes where we didn't see people coping with the realities of life at all, or in a healthy way. And, you know, I oftentimes think about how, you know, when I was younger, I was labeled as, I was the bad one. I was the trouble child. But I think, I think in all of like the acting out and some of those issues with behavior, it was me emoting based on what was happening in my environment. And I didn't have language for it. And so, you know, a child without language is a child who acts out. And the worst thing for that child is to be in environments where the people around them don't really have the know-how or the language to, you know, I see a problem, let me help you, you know, resolve that problem. It would either turn into, you know, Black culture, it's very, you get beat sometimes, you get talked to very harshly, it's go outside and play with your little friends, or, you know, it's all of these different things except for the one thing that would push us towards, you know, becoming healthier people. And so for me, I learned like in hindsight that I wasn't bad per se. I was just experiencing things that I didn't have language for, and people around me didn't really have language and skills to help me get through. And so I think it's extremely important to the point that you were making about, you know, not knowing how to process things. That's really what it is. And like when you don't have the ability, you know, like we're not born with the ability to process stuff. And I think the same way that we were always told to be strong, be resilient, or, you know, those of us that were in households that heard the rhetoric that, you know, you should not cry, or you show emotion, you're weak, or, you know, all those different things that kind of like make you build this wall, and you think it's turning you into like this hero, and you get to your 20s and you're like, I'm really jacked up.
I'm broken.
Yeah, I'm broken. And like I tell people, I'm working through layers that the 12-year-old me didn't understand, and I'm not. And you have to hold so much space and grace for that, because, and it's not my fault. Like, and I don't even blame, not anymore. I don't blame the people that were responsible for raising me, because trauma on trauma. And so generations, it's like literally like generations of piled up trauma, and they didn't know any better. They literally did the best that they can. And unfortunately, the best wasn't always enough, but it was all that they had.
Yes, I love it. I'm trying to stay in my seat, but that is so good. And it's so real, right? Like you touched on so much, and I guess we should probably like move along. But like you touched on so much in terms of the misperception of like, okay, as kids, like you're acting out or you're super active and you don't know how to process. And so you get labeled as bad, or you get diagnosed with, yes, I was just about to say that. Like you get diagnosed with, oh, they have ADHD. And it's like, no, like they're trying to say something. They're trying to show you and tell you things. And that's a lot of what we do with like therapy with kids is it's not a lot of talking. It's not a lot of emoting through words, but we're acknowledging behavior. We're acknowledging that nonverbal stuff. And that's what's happened like so much in our culture, that we misperceive what's happening when people are expressing themselves without words. And the whole generational piece, like a lot of our parents and our families have done the best that they could off of the limited, skill set and information that they had. And so it does become generational. And that's why I think this time and just stuff like this is so important, because not only can we apply it and reflect upon ourselves, but we can then have conversations with family. We're more equipped to work with our children or our siblings, or even have those conversations, which can be a little bit more difficult with parents and grandparents. That's a little hard sometimes. But yeah. But even just still having those conversations, and even if it's like I agree to disagree, I think that something that's said, they sit with, and it comes back and they think about it, even if they don't change, like just having those conversations about mental health with all of those that we are connected to is vital. It's vital to help change the narrative of communities of color and just people in general. Yeah, I had to calm myself down. Okay. So we talked about the stigma, but I want to talk about the life of a Black creative. So I think in addition to stigma, we see how not only is it within our families, but then there's stigma within professional spaces, right? We see underrepresentation of Black creatives in certain fields, in certain spaces. And so we can debate on this, but I would like to say that we're starting to see in 2020 kind of like a surge of either more creatives having opportunities or more creatives using this time to put stuff out there. That's what I've noticed. Even when it comes to, we've seen, I think Yara Shahidi, she was always doing things, but I saw she has like a new something. But you see, like there's a surge of like more Black creatives having leadership roles in certain lanes. And so I want to know, what do you all think about the life of a Black creative in 2020? Because 2020 has given us a lot. And some people are, I guess, capitalizing on it. I don't know if capitalizing is the best word, but, some people are capitalizing on it. Some people are like, I'm not well enough to be creating right now. Like, so I want you all to speak to that. Like, what have you seen for Black creatives in 2020?
Joe, you look like you got an answer for us.
So it's a weird toss up right now, because like right now you're seeing everyone pop up, Telfar bags, and different creators popping up in different spaces. Beats had a whole program to hire Black creatives, and part of it, like, yes, it feels like it's finally, but then also at the same time with everything going on, it's kind of like, is it performative, or is it actually like, are you guys actually doing this for a good reason? So that's the only kind of like, it's kind of like a Libra scale. It's just like, which one is it? Are you guys actually doing this for the wellness of the community and giving people a chance? are you doing this because of everything that's going on? But definitely, I do see like a huge surge, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, everything. I see more Black creatives just putting out more products. You know, I've seen more people do skits and scripts and stuff like that. So I do think it's a huge surge. And I love to see it. I love to see it. And I, you know, want to make sure that it keeps going. It's not one of those things that's just like here today and then like kind of like falls off. But in the spaces that we're in, I know it's still like we still kind of have to work twice as hard to get what we feel like what we deserve. So it's a weird toss up. It's a weird toss up.
It is strange. It's a little strange, and I think to the point of capitalism, I think it's a lot of that, and I don't know that it's so. I don't think it's exactly ill intended, and I'm speaking particularly in the space of those that are either have been moving as entrepreneurs or now kind of like moving into the entrepreneurial space. I think a lot of people though are you're seeing a lot of people produce in survival mode, and so that's why there's been such an influx of new businesses, new services, new products, people that didn't even identify with, you know, being a creative or being an entrepreneur, whether you kind of like see that interchangeably or not. They're doing things that were foreign to them at one point, and I think a lot of it is I need to secure the bag. I need to make sure that my family and I can eat in the days to come. And so there's a lot of what's coming off as, you know, whatever it takes to get the bag is what I'm going to do. And I think, you know, it speaks to how creative we are as Black people, and the fact that we have the power to establish a very healthy economy if we were to kind of like, you know, put our mind and our resources together. And I think it also speaks to the fact that we've always had to fend for ourselves. We've always had to, you know, figure it out and to survive, whether or not, you know, and it looks differently now than it did years ago. But when you check the narrative, we've always showed up when it came to surviving. We've had no choice. So I think a lot of that is just innate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think it's weird right now because we're trying to find a balance between how to deal personally and how to push through without the judgment of continuing life as normal. It's really tough to figure out whether to keep moving or whether to speak on certain things. Take a stop from your regular creative programming to like speak to certain things that's happening in this world. And when you do that, whether people realize it or not, when you're trying to eat or you're trying to feed your family, it's always you should stop doing this because you should be talking about this. You know, so it's weird right now in the life of a Black creative because it's kind of like you don't know what to do. It's like if you do this, if you continue with normal life, you're not standing up for your people. If you don't continue on with normal life, you see a decline in your own business and things like that. So it's almost like, well, what do I do? You know, it's a weird time for Black creatives right now, fighting against whether to be judged or whether to feed your family or whether to do both. Because if you feed your family with, you know, the common status of what's going on right now, it's like, you're using this for your, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's a weird time.
And it's almost exhausting too, to the point where you feel like the best thing to do is to do nothing. Like there are so many things that I've personally had planned prior to the pandemic, and even some things that I've planned to do while the pandemic has been going on. And I could be concrete in it today, and then tomorrow I'm vacillating because it's like you know your intentions, but you can't sell your intentions to the world. And once it's out there, people will judge it however they see fit. And there's not much that you can do about that, but you're always cognizant of time. And it's just like, is there ever going to be a right time? Like, it's been so weird to like even post a selfie because it's like the climate of the world is like, they may feel like, you know, why are you posting?
You don't care about Black lives.
Why are we talking about posting a selfie right now.
Black lives. I'm in the fight with y'all, but it's still like, am I supposed to live without a sense of normalcy too? Because I'm in the fight, and then like it's another thing too when you feel like you have a certain level of like people that are, because you have creatives that are very skilled, super talented, but they're not necessarily people that have a particular type of influence, and so you can move around a lot. But when there are people that are, and I don't care the number of people, but when you have eyes that are watching you and waiting for your next move, and sometimes not even just waiting for your next move, but people that are waiting for you to say something that makes the nonsense make sense, it puts you in a very awkward space, because it's like you don't want to let down the people that are looking to you to say something, but sometimes you literally don't have any. This has been like one of the most speechless realities I've ever lived in, and it's almost like some days I don't have anything to say, but I know that I have to say something because of what that can be perceived as to the people watching.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I even had somebody this week ask me, they saw the Breaking Down Stigma website, and they were like, have you been have you been, creating during this time? And I'm like, I haven't. We kind of quiet over here because it's I don't think that I have words still to process, or words to kind of articulate what's happening, or I don't know how much insight I can really offer, because everybody is experiencing, while this can be seen as like a collective traumatic event, the way we handle trauma is all different. So I don't even know how to offer insight about a collective trauma, because there's no, what has worked for past traumatic experiences or just stressful or uncomfortable things may not necessarily work for this, right? This is something completely different from what we have all. Yeah, for sure. And so I loved that the conversation kind of naturally went here, because my question to you all was going to be, how do you manage being a creative and social justice? I think we have seen some connections in the two, in how people have used their art to put Black Lives Matter on different streets in different cities. People are doing other things, but yeah, where on the spectrum is creativity and social justice? And so I really love that the conversation kind of naturally went there, to say hey, there's really not a one size fit all of what that looks like, and for every creative, that may not be the way to use their art, or what they have to offer. So yeah.
It's weird, because whenever you speak out on a situation, you always have those people that will be like, oh, that's not your lane, you shouldn't speak on that, you're not this type of person, just stick to doing art, or stick to doing photography, or stick to doing whatever so it's also just like, it kind of gets you down, which is like, dang, I want to speak up about this, but someone's going to tell you you shouldn't speak up about this, but it's also like, that's what's right and that's what I want to do. But then it's hard sometimes, because sometimes you feel like you're going to get that backlash. So sometimes you feel like it's better if I don't say anything at all and just kind of do something behind the scenes and not worry about the public backlash behind it.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah,
that's spot on.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've been like, when you're trying to find that balance between showing up and figuring out what's too much, what should I say and what should I not say. I think what has helped me is, number one, realizing that I don't always have to say something. That in my absence or my silence, there are 10 other people that are showing up. They're saying a lot. They're doing a lot. There are people that are out on the front line, if you will. And I think the front line looks different for everybody. I remember when all of the, the protests were starting, and all the different things to show that, we see the fight, we're in the fight, and we're all committed to the same end goal. Everyone felt the pressure to be like, people felt like in order for me to be seen as somebody that's down for the cause, I have to be on the front line of a protest. And that's not true, because, the person that's out protesting is just as powerful as the person that's making phone calls to the local government on the back end. It's not something that people see. It's not something that you'll see posted on social media, but it does count. And so I think you have to really, figure out what your lane is, and work your lane, whether or not it wins the applaud or the acknowledgement of people, because we're all called to the fight, and I think, and I think that's the revolution of the time that we're in, is that one of the major differences between now and then is that we have so many different creative avenues to get our messages out, to show where we stand, what we believe, that it really gives us leverage. But it is hard to figure out what the execution of that looks like. And I think you just have to trust your gut. And my thing is, as creatives, whether it's a social justice matter or anything else, I feel like if our goal is to always create solutions and soothe pain, we'll land at the right place.
That's really nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's good. I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I think I was just gonna say, for me, in blending creativity and activism, it's tough, because there's always a sense for the climate that's happening right now, especially a sense of inadequacy in saying, if I do this, is it going to make a difference anyway?
Yeah.
And is it going to change anything? Not saying that should stop anybody, but they're real feelings of what can I do that will actually help? Like, I mean, I wrote a song about 4 or 5 years ago tackling police brutality, and I didn't put it out. And here we are in 2020, and that song is still relevant. And it's like, I could put it out, but in 5 more years, is it still going to be able to be put out? You know what I mean? What else is there to do? You know what I mean? And I think in blending our voice and our creativity and trying to make a difference, a lot of times for us, we don't know the tactics. I mean, you could write a book, you could write a song, you could do a panel, and it's almost like, well, what kind of angle can I use that'll be different to kind of spark some type of change at this point? You know what I mean? Yeah. Always those feelings of like, is what I'm doing enough to actually cause something? You know what I mean?
And I think the way we tackle issues like outside of the box kind of makes it a little bit easier for people to have the conversation, because most people, they would try to talk to it or talk about it, and then we'll get into a very intense debate, about one side and another side, kind of breaking it outside of the box of different people doing videos or the giant Black Lives Matter. That's forcing us to have an uncomfortable conversation, but it's not going straight into a debate about it. Someone can actually have that conversation in a peaceful manner. It's not just, oh, this is what it is. It's like, oh, okay, so I see this painting. What's the cause? What's the reason? What's the story behind it?
Do you all feel as if, whether it is about the times now, or I guess this can really be acts in general, do these moments make you feel like, okay, I have something to prove when it comes to creating? And if so, how do you maneuver through that? Or even if it's not relevant to like what's happening in the world, like just in your journey as a creative, how have you, if you've ever experienced this, maneuvered through times of feeling like you have something to prove to others in what you do?
I think social media puts that on us heavy, because it's like, Like you see a million posts a day. It's like if your timeline is quiet, then such and such and such. Or if you're back to normal, then such and such and such. You get what I'm saying? Or if you're not posting about Breonna Taylor, or you're not posting about this and that, then you're such and such and such. But we forget, like you said earlier, people deal in their own ways, people process in their own ways, but that almost puts pressure on you to do so that other people don't judge you. You get what I'm saying? If you're not strong in your sense of knowing why you do certain things, and your sense of self, and knowing, how you carry yourself and what you believe and what your core values are, then you would be pressured. You would feel pressured to do and perform for people. You get what I'm saying? To post this because other people say that's what you should be doing, or post that because other people say that's what you should be doing, instead of the authenticity of your own heart and your own convictions. You get what I'm saying?
So you would say that because as a creative, there's like this expectation of like public whatever.
Yeah.
In order to maneuver through these times, or just like in those periods of our lives where we feel like we have something to prove, in order to maneuver through that, like you have to have a sturdy or sound sense of self.
Yes.
Yep.
And knowing what your authentic mindset, your purpose, what your values are. You know what I mean? Because some people feel like, I'm more of an advocate if I do this, or I'm more of an advocate if I do that, but I'm moving at my pace. I'm processing at my pace. I'm doing what I can. You know what I mean? And I'm not in competition with other people. You get what I'm saying? So because I know that about myself, I don't have to feel the pressure of doing what someone else feels like I should do, to prove myself to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can anybody else speak to like a moment in your journey where you felt that way?
I think it happens naturally. As creatives, there's this. There can be. Well, number one, I think a lot of it is because through social media, I feel like the idea of being a creative has become glamorized, and it's always attached to steady movement. And so people believe
Yeah.
that, if you're not moving, if you're not making moves, whether in silent or, out for the public, that you're somehow not a creative, or you're not a creative that's on your game. And so it really puts you under this pressure to perform and produce. And then it becomes more about the public versus doing what you feel like you're called to do because you want to be moving in purpose and you want to be effective. And I think it's even more pressure too for creatives that find themselves in the company of other creators, because then it becomes a game of comparison. And so you're addicted to almost like leveling up and being like equal to your peers, not realizing like everyone has their own pace, everyone has their own path. And I can be doing the same thing as you, or in the same lane, or even in the same proximity, and our path is not going to be identical. And you have to, even if people don't make it as if that's okay, you have to know that it is. Because if not, you'll be on this endless game of comparing. And I feel like at some point, if you keep falling victim to comparison, you'll lose your sense of self, and you know, you'll lose the essence of what you feel like made you creative in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
with
what-
that, it falling into imposter syndrome, because you're trying to, you see that it works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for you.
Out of my business!
Joe be knowing.
See, I be knowing.
Tapped in, huh? You tapped in.
Yes, of course. It's a really hard thing, because it's just, you don't find your actual voice, because it may not be gaining as much traction right now as compared to Johnny Lou down the street, but it's just like you kind of stick through with it, of just like, okay, this is what I believe in, and I'm going to stick through with it. So whether one person likes it or nobody likes it, I'm okay with that. It's still my voice.
Yes.
And I tweeted yesterday, and I don't mean to like take this down like a spiritual. Something's happening with my eye. Down like
Go for it, Khas.
a spiritual road. But I think one of the best things that creatives can do for themselves is to master the concept of time and season, and that goes to Joe's point that like everything has its own timeline and everything has its own season. I know we use that word so loosely, but if we return to the actual definition of season, it'll put us in a space where we're able to separate time and season. And it can be, you can feel like it's the time for something. And in this present time, you may be equipped, you may have studied, you may have mastered your craft, but that doesn't mean that, the season for your opportunity is at the same time that you're ready. And there will be a moment where time and seasons collide, but you have to master the in between space. And I think the best way to do that is to remain true to who you are and to be okay with your path and your pace,
Yes.
no matter how slow or fast you feel it moving, because you'll get to a fast pace and it ain't what you think it is. You wait a minute, this is not what I wanted. But
Yeah.
you gotta be so careful about like what you seek hard after, because I think in our desire, like we're so destination driven that we lose sight of the joy of the journey, and it kills us.
Yeah.
It kills us.
Even the hard parts of the journey. And I think that is the beautiful thing about life, is that we're able to identify like we want to avoid the hard parts because we just don't like hard, right? We don't like things that don't feel good. But being able to find ways to enjoy the hard parts of the journey make us even more equipped to wherever we land, whoever we're created to be and whatever we're supposed to do. Like those hard parts, sometimes we get a lot more from those hard parts than the easy and feel good parts of our journey. So that's so
The
real.
journey is the reward. And I think, and I know we have
Yes.
it backwards. Like we feel like the destination is, but it's the journey. It's the journey.
Yes, that's what equips you. That's what gets you ready to enjoy the destination. That's what teaches you what you need to know. Yeah.
It's preparation.
Wow.
You just grow in that time. It's just like working out. When you work out, if you want to get to a certain size, you have to break down the muscle, you have to get uncomfortable, and
Yes.
boom, you said you get to the body that you want. So it's the same thing. It's just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's so good.
For sure, for sure. So as we all, have journeyed and are journeying, what are some practical things that you do to kind of encourage yourself and just kind of help you along your pace?
I think I have to check out sometimes. Like I literally have to check out. Like, okay, I gotta stop paying attention so closely to certain things, especially social media, and remind myself of where I am. I need to stay present, because a lot of times when we see things happening on social media for other people, things being, the highlight reels that we're shown on social media, we want to project ourselves there. Why am I not doing that? Why am I not doing this? And I literally have to check out, be present, rewrite my plans, focus in, and pay attention to where I am and what that path looks like for me. Because if you keep on feeding yourself what other people's highlight reels are, you will lose focus and you will start to compare yourself and fall into that trap of self-pity, or you know what I mean? Why am I not there? Questioning yourself, questioning your path. I have to remain sure and remain present and check out. Like, get away from, you got to check out. Take some time, some meditation, some prayer, some just getting myself away from the hustle and bustle, from the fast paces that I see, because just because I see the fast pace don't mean that it's going as fast as I see it going. Some people's behind the scenes are snail pace, but all you see is, I'm posting this, I'm posting that. You don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? So you literally have to check out and remain present within yourself. Was what I had to do anyway.
That's real. And I think a lot of times that our inability to do that is what leads to like heightened anxiety, right? We find ourselves anxious, and we're like, yo, why am I so anxious? Or we find ourselves experiencing depression, or like there's so many different things that begin to happen as a result of not being in tune, that like I'm taking in too much stuff that's not helpful for me to be grounded and present. One of the things, like a practical tool in terms of like grounding technique, one of my favorite is this count. It's a 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique. So you ask yourself, like, in this moment, what are 5 things that I see? In this moment, what are 4 things that I hear? In this moment, what are 3 things that I feel? I think I mixed up the numbers. 2, what are 2 things I smell? What's 1 thing I taste? So either way, like you're tapping into your senses to help you be present with like what's around you. And I think that that's one of my favorite techniques to do and also share, to kind of speak to your point of, okay, let me be present.
Yes.
Yeah. And
It's
then for
important.
me, it's just figuring out, what do you like? Like trusting your gut, trusting your intuition. Just because someone else did it and you feel like you could do it better, that's fine. But do it. You're saying do it how you want to do it. Do it in your style, your fashion. You can't be Johnny and Jim. You can only be yourself.
Joke.
So yeah, you can literally only be yourself. So literally, just trust your own gut, trust your own intuition.
Yeah. For me, I think it's number one, probably at the top of the list, is awareness. Just being aware of like where you are, what's going on, and acknowledging in that awareness things to be grateful for. I think sometimes we can become so fixated on the future, or all the things that we have not accomplished, and we get caught up in comparison because we're not grateful for what we have accomplished. And sometimes the addiction to the future, it robs you of things that have actually taken place in the present, and you'll be surprised to know like you have more to be grateful for and more to actually celebrate and enjoy, and to really just have a sense of appreciation for in the present, when you allow yourself to be aware. And then the second thing for me has been affirmation, and that's learning to affirm like who I am, where I am, my journey, and and all that comes with that. And then also being in environments that offer affirmation, not that you free yourself of the responsibility to affirm yourself, but it helps that you are in environments that can speak well of you, can speak well to you, can speak well about your future, because it helps you keep everything in perspective.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's real. Okay.